This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare. One last scare. One last scare.
Hello, friends. It's been so long since we've seen each other. It's been so long since we've hung out with each other, but we're back. We're in action, and we're going to have some fun. Welcome to The Last Scare, a home for horror nerds to come together and gush about their favorite feel-good genre. I'm Jayla. I'm joined with Cam and, of course, Blake, and we are here to talk about some good old times. Not really for the nuns, but it was still fun.
More like nuns are having a little too much fun. The nuns, it's a bunch of nuns being just the worst.
Yeah. In a nutshell.
Yeah, that's very true. But first, we have two news to talk about. First of all,
Two news to come. Go for it.
First of all, Terrifier 3 is wrapped. We are Terrifier friends around here. It is officially wrapped, and we are chatting about it. Now, go. Cam, thoughts?
I mean, there's not really like a lot to cover here other than we are generally excited, and we've, heard that this one's going to be real fucked up. I know Blake's excited.
Very excited. What comes with the wrapping of the filming were just those two blurbs of Santa being cast, which confirmed Art will be killing Santa in this movie. And Damon Leone teasing a kill that made Art the Clown himself, David Howard Thornton, almost vomit because it's that bad. So
Almost
vomit. So he had to take a little minute to himself, which after Terrifier 1 and 2, it's kind of hard to imagine what it could possibly be that brings him that far. So I can't wait.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's happening. It's all happening.
For us,
quick,
yeah.
Quick hello in the chat to President Indiana Old, who has recently been inaugurated because of Thunderbolts asterisk,
Yes.
Terrifier 3, Rise of the Machines. He also says, I forget who made the prediction of there being a super graphic birth scene, but someone's definitely getting a prediction point at the end of the year. Might have been Sabrina.
Oh, oh my God.
I feel like that was for a different movie, but I'm not sure.
We'll have to find out because, man, well, that was...
I'm so excited to go back to the predictions video after we just did that last one.
Yeah.
I know. It's going to be great.
We'll
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Terrifier 3. Blake, do you have any thoughts on Terrifier 3?
I just hope it in general still remembers the line not to cross, so it's still an enjoyable movie, and I'm not worried. I know Damien Leone's talked about still making it enjoyable, and he has the lines in his head as to what not to cross to make it too disturbing and disgusting. So, as long as it's not in bad taste, I'm very excited to see how far they can still push this movie.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. It's going to be really fun to see where they go. I feel like it's cool to see creators just push the boundaries a little bit. Go for it. Why not?
Favorite feel-good genre.
Favorite feel-good genre. Speaking
That's right.
of sequels, Ready or Not 2 is happening. Well, God, I forgot her name.
Samara
Weaving.
Thank you. She's returning. I didn't write down my notes. Oh, I know her. She's returning, and it's been said that the script for Ready or Not 2 is an effing banger. That is a direct quote.
Would effing be short for fucking?
Yeah.
We can say it.
Can we? I don't know.
I've probably already said it like 5 times on the stream. I don't know.
We've said worse. Pretty sure.
We have. I don't know. I just don't
Talking
want
about
you to.
mutilation and everything.
Oh, I thought you meant cunt.
I did also mean that, Cam.
Cam just loves to
I'm
say
sorry, I
cunt
just
whenever he
can't help
can, honestly.
Don't say that.
Anyways.
That's an ugly word.
Anyways, Blake.
So sharp, Cam.
I know. I used to really hate that word. I used to think that is such a nasty word. And then I just started saying it too much.
He gets giddy anytime he has a reason or a moment to say it.
I like it
Well, here
because
it
it's
comes.
so aggressive.
He loves Australians. Blake.
Oh, you fucking cunt.
Blake. What do you think about this news? Ready or Not 2? How can the story continue? Is this a good idea?
Yeah, I definitely think it's one of those horror sequels that isn't necessary at all. But the fact that the first one is so good because it had such a good script, and the script for the sequel is being praised so much, I have more trust in the talent behind this movie to the point that it's like, yeah, they wouldn't have made this movie now if it wasn't worth it in their eyes. So I think it'll be worth the wait, and I think it'll be good. So I trust them. I hope they don't let me down.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really disagree. I am a big believer in any idea can be a good idea, and any idea can work if you have a good idea.
You're not wrong.
No, for sure.
I feel I'm really open to things that just on paper don't sound right because I feel like with the right hands, the right execution, it can really work. Mm-hmm. Cam, I know you're not a huge fan of Radio Silence, but how do you feel about Ready or Not 2?
I mean, I'm open to anything. Abigail comes out this week. Not to change the subject.
Abigail does come out this week.
It's Radio Silence's current movie. We'll see how that is. I'm gonna kind of see where they're at creatively because I didn't love the last two Scream movies that they did. I did enjoy Ready or Not. I always love a good Adam Brody appearance as a guy who may be like one of the good ones or maybe not.
He was so passive. He was like, "Listen, my family sucks. I don't care."
I don't even remember if he made it out of that movie, but well, your silence is deafening.
I almost don't remember Ready or Not at all. So.
Oh, I
really don't remember it very well.
I watched it. I've watched enough times to remember, or maybe I just really liked it. Maybe both.
Yeah. It was good. I did like it.
Had fun with it. I do love a good old. I don't know. It makes me think of. I like it for similar reasons to Your Next. I feel like Your Next kind of made. I just like smart protagonists in horror. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Love.
I don't know how you top Samara Weaving in a bridesmaid or not bridesmaid in a bride dress covered in blood, smoking a cigarette. So we'll see where they go from there.
What's your problem? In-laws. I will. Oh my god, I had a good point, and it left. Cam, say something real quick, then maybe I'll have a second to remember.
What's her name? Andie MacDowell.
Yeah.
Was it really?
I don't know.
Do you know who that is?
I think.
Yeah, who is that? Who is Andie MacDowell, Jayla?
I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. I had a really good point. It's fine. I'll just blurt it out later on. Let's talk about.
I just feel the need
interrupt to interrupt anybody talking when you remember it.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember. It's something to do with. Samara Weaving. That's what I was gonna say. Before we move on, she has such a great banshee scream. She is truly a scream queen.
Yeah, we all know the scene you're talking about.
Love her when she's brilliant. She's great. I'm excited.
What scene? Scream? I don't know. What Scream 7? I mean 6?
No, when she starts screaming, she's wielding a knife.
Kitchen.
Yeah, she's cornered and just absolutely just killing it.
I'll have to give it a rewatch, I guess. I like I said, I don't really remember that one.
Yeah, maybe we'll rewatch it with Your Next, even though I don't think you liked Your Next, but you might like it more.
Oh no, that's been an episode that we've talked about doing for a long time. Is a Your Next Ready or Not double feature.
Oh, maybe we'll do that soon. Depends on if Abigail is good. If Abigail lands well, we want to talk about it. Yes.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. If not, we'll yeah. Anyways,
we'll get there.
We have movies to talk about tonight. Eventually, we do have movies to talk about tonight.
That's all the news?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not Scream. Saw got delayed.
Oh yeah. I'm not surprised, and I'm actually thankful for it. I'm a big believer in just if you can't do it, if you don't have enough time, delay it.
It seemed like a crazy amount of time, less than a year, an 11-month turnaround between movies. That was a little bit concerning, especially with how good Saw X was, and then you compare it to the sort of movie to movie quality of the first 7 movies being a year apart, every single one of them being a year apart. It was concerning. So them taking a little more time to cook is a good thing, I think. And I also need to note that this camera lens is extremely unflattering on my arms, and I am not that skinny. My arms are not that twiggy. I'm just like,
You're right about that, Cam.
It's true.
Yeah, my biggest concern was that they saw the success of Saw X and they were just like, greenlight the next one now. And I was like, guys, you can't do that if you have a good movie. It's because the last one was so good. And you can't just rush it out and think people are going to go see it. It has to be good.
Yeah. Take your time. Take your
Just
time to
take your
cook.
time. It felt
Make it
really
good.
rushed. I was really, really concerned. The same concern I had for Scream 7 when it got announced and ready so soon. So,
At the same time, I really want them to kind of like cap it off as a new trilogy. I want them to do Saw 11 and 12, and then I would, Tobin Bell's getting old, and I would hate for them to lose him before they get to a good stopping point. I feel like you
a
could
satisfying point.
Yeah, like any of the movies could have ended there with like a big twist, crazy ending, but Saw 7 was clearly like the last one. Saw X really kind of left it open, but I don't want them to over milk it. I think two more movies could be in order, and then you could have Saw X, Soxy, and Soxy be like their own trilogy, like of a different quality than the whole rest of the series. Like, because I think Saw X really stood out so strongly.
It could almost be like a cat and mouse game between him and the blonde woman.
Cecilia.
It could be that.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting. Or he could just start going after scammers.
Yeah.
Beekeeper style.
It's just the anti. Yeah.
I'm the beekeeper.
John Kramer's. I'll take care of bees.
Honestly, that movie really blew my mind, but it's not. I'm not gonna get into it. It's fine. This is
The Beekeeper?
Yes.
Yeah.
He never explained it. He never told us what a beekeeper was. He just kept going.
It's like
He kept saying, "I'm the beekeeper," but he never. We don't know. The whole beekeeper company,
It's a society.
society
It's
is
a
one woman in a blue
organization,
room with a
agency.
computer. It was one woman in a blue room with a computer. Anyways.
Josh Hutcherson. Okay.
Yay! We love Josh Hutcherson.
So, horror nerds, let's move on.
Yeah.
The plan tonight is to talk about the Omen, original Omen, and then from there move into non-spoiler review of the First Omen, and then a non-spoiler review of Immaculate, and then we'll move into spoilers for both Immaculate and the First Omen because we're going to be comparing the two of them a lot. So that's what's happening. So we'll give you spoiler warnings and whatnot for everything.
Yeah, let's kick it off. Let's kick it off with
We ready?
original Omen.
We move, we ball.
We move, we ball. Omen 76. Blake, I'm going to let you kick us off because I know you have a bit more to say about this one. So please, tell us about The Omen. It's a classic.
It is a classic. I really like this one too. I first saw The Omen, several years ago when I was really young. And I know I didn't appreciate it at the time because I was in that mindset where it's like, oh, it's just a little kid. How scary can he be? And I really didn't, read between the lines and look at what the movie's actually about. I just didn't appreciate it at the time. And I don't think I paid attention enough. So watching it recently, I feel like was my first time, and just how brilliant that story was. I had to look it up to see if it was based on a book, and it really wasn't. It's just an original good horror movie. And just even before you get this prequel, you get the basic premise, and what goes on behind the scenes is terrifying enough, let alone having that filled in later. But just given this movie and having Damien be the focus of the movie and the story, and not see him for what seems like a good chunk of the middle part of the movie, and just have Gregory Peck, the legend, carry this movie. It was really smart because I really think what makes or breaks horror movies is the main character, and this movie really lucked out with the parents of Damien being great main characters to follow. The story behind how Damien came to be what really he is, and how it's all resolved by the end. It is a horror classic for a reason, for sure.
I agree. Which is why it's surprising that I didn't have too much to say about it, because I feel like I'm just going to be on a broken record as far as my thoughts. It is a classic. I do love 70s horror for the way they look, for their tone. I love 70s horror for how quiet it is in general.
The movie was beautiful. It was pure.
Yeah.
It was genuinely pure cinema.
Exactly. And I feel like I say that about any classic, especially in the 70s particularly, that we bring up. It's just, it had all the elements that I adore from this era of horror. I see that it's a classic, but one thing that kind of grasped me that I didn't think about as I was doing my research, people that were going to go see this originally, they didn't know that he was like the spawn of Satan going into this movie. They didn't know. It was more ambiguous than that, and it was kind of a mystery that was, that built on itself throughout the movie. And I feel like it's cool for me to think about going to this movie back then and having that mystery in the back of your head as you're watching things unfold. That's really, really cool. I appreciate this. It's rare for me to not like a classic horror movie. I feel like, I feel like I can't think of a classic horror movie that I don't love and admire. Black Christmas that we watched this year was incredible.
Get out of town.
I know.
So good.
Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, like all of them. I just love them so much. I love 70s horror. It's great. So it was really exciting to watch this one, and I've only seen it once before this. I don't really remember it, so revisiting that was great. But Cam, this is your first watch. Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts?
I agree with what you're saying. I like how kind of quiet and contemplative it is. The cinematography is just really, really thoughtful and really intentional. It looks really gorgeous, and it's also grounded, of course, by the legendary Gregory Peck, Atticus Finch, a true king. It's, I don't know. I really loved it. I also recently watched Rosemary's Baby for the first time, another movie from around the same era. That one was 1968, and also has some similar things going on. A lot of forced pregnancies going on throughout all of these movies, but it was just a different time for the genre, where it wasn't necessary. It was before jump scares were like constant, or before they were a given, really. It was more like thematically what we're dealing with, the subject matter we're going to deal with is going to be really heavy and disturbing if you want to really get into it. I mean, we're talking about the Antichrist, which for some people is a very real thing. And so a movie dealing with that is going to shock and disturb them. And I think the movie handles it in a very earnest way. That's what I like about horror cinema from this era, is that it's taking it seriously. I wouldn't say too seriously, but it was before camp was something that was intentional. I'm not. There's plenty of camp going on in these movies, but I think they were really trying to kind of bother you at their core. And I think this movie has a lot going for it. I didn't watch the sequels. I will also say I definitely handled this wrong, because I watched the First Omen first, which was not my intention. I would never, I never planned to do that. But like, based on our schedule, which has gotten really hectic, if you couldn't tell from like every episode of The Last Scare being like a month apart now, we watched the First Omen because it was like the only time we were going to be able to go see it a couple nights ago, and then I watched the First Omen.
To be fair,
today. I mean the original Omen.
To be fair to Cam, the night that we were supposed to watch Omen, the actual original Omen, I burned the crap out of my hand and just started like having a tough time with that. Mm-hmm. So, movie didn't work out.
We had to deal with other things that night.
I cried like a little child.
She cried a lot, and I had to console her by finally revealing that a few weeks ago I bought tickets for us to go see Wallows later this year.
Cried more.
Oh my god.
I bought concert tickets on a whim because it's one of her favorite bands, and I was like, I just had it in my pocket. I was like, I've got to tell her this at a really good time. And then she's just like sobbing, and I was like, hey buddy, we're gonna go see Wallows in August.
I cried harder.
Yeah, she cried harder. I was like, it's late, I gotta go.
That was honestly, he's just go to bed.
No, that is my response. That is my response when I have any sort of overwhelming situation, is just like, I can't deal with this anymore, so I'm going to go to bed. So that's my recommendation when anyone is going through anything. I was like, if you are simply unconscious, you don't actually really have to deal with this. I know this seems hard, but like if you're asleep, it doesn't matter as much.
That's a Cam original. I can't disagree with any of the points you made. Yeah, I feel like anything I said would be repeating what you guys have said so far. The tone is great. The atmosphere is great. It's a good story. It's a good time. If you love horror and you just have some time, like a rainy day, like a rainy night, throw on The Omen.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it is one I would immediately recommend. President Indiana Old in the live chat says, mind-blowing that Richard Donner went on to direct Superman right after this movie. And also the proper cut of Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. I know what's up. I've seen it, but I've seen it all. I know.
He's a nerd.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at what horror directors do with comic book movies. They kill it.
They do. You're not wrong.
They kill it. Looks like Sam Raimi coming back for something.
Please
He's in
listen.
talks for something big.
They're really teasing Tobey Spider-Man 4. He wants it to happen.
Guys, I want everyone to know right now. I'm warning you. Keep this in your back pocket. I'm going to be so annoying. I'm going to be so annoying the moment anything Raimi is announced. Spider-Man, if he's talking about for Doctor Strange, whatever, I will be absolutely obnoxious.
It's going to be like an event. Bigger, like probably bigger than Evil Dead Rise for you, right?
Yeah. I'm just know I'll be annoying. You'll have to deal with it. You'll love it. But anyways,
I will be more than moderately excited. That would be huge. It'd be huge. It would also be huge.
So you would also be somewhat like annoyingly excited.
No, I'd be really excited. I'd be super excited. Yeah, I'd be super excited.
Yeah.
But
don't downplay it.
Also,
you're a nerd.
Blake and I are in agreement that it would also be super cool if Raimi did Secret Wars.
That's my real hope. That is really my
Which he also
dream.
wants to do.
Raimi, please.
I'm just glad he's still around and still doing it, you know?
I love Sam Raimi.
All I'm going to say is he said he loves Marvel. He loves every character in Marvel, not just Spider-Man. He wants to do Spider-Man 4 with Tobey. He wants to do Secret Wars and Avengers 5. They'll probably get the same guy for both. And when they re-released Spider-Man just this Monday, it made so much money. A re-release of a movie we've had for 20 years. To be Kevin Feige and not go like, people would really flock to go see that. When you're in the multiverse saga, you have an X-Men show on your streaming service right now that's not connected to the MCU, showing you can do these other projects that aren't necessarily in that same continuity. Just do it. I feel like it comes down to Sony. So we're this close.
But we'll
don't fuck it up.
The moment I'm not. I'm not going to jinx it by speaking poorly on Sony currently because I
will say that Sony, I can give them this. They are the one company that takes chances consistently on re-releasing movies. The fact that the Spider-Man movies are in theaters again is crazy, but also, they re-released No Way Home with like extra scenes, and so we got to see it together, even though we didn't even know each other when it first came out. And then also they did the Anyone But You re-release with extra stuff. Just for an example, like Sony would be putting things out again.
You really had me at first when you said Sony is really good at taking chances, and I was like,
oh, they're good at taking chances.
They got bullied into re-releasing Morbius, so to say they take chances in re-releasing movies.
Absolutely, I can't disagree. And they give us Spider-Verse, so you know what? Thank you, Sony. I guess. But anyways,
Omen spoilers?
Omen spoilers.
Do we have spoilers?
Yeah, I just figured we could still do spoiler warnings and whatnot, just in case anyone out there has not seen it, because it's still worth seeing for a
highly
first time.
recommend it.
I didn't even prepare for Omen spoilers. I don't.
That's okay.
I have an Omen spoiler.
Please go for it,
Blake.
The opening of the movie, so please go watch it. It opens with the babies being swapped, and the evil nuns say your child died during childbirth, and here's this baby that has no parents, so it's yours, and don't tell your wife that it's not your baby, because why break her heart if you don't have to, so shush. Which is just evil genius, because they know if this woman, poor woman, by the way, for what she goes through in this movie, thinks this is her birth child, everything he does wrong will automatically be covered up with, oh, he's our child, he's perfect, what could be wrong with him? As opposed to learning from the get-go that your child died, this isn't yours, and everything he does, you'll feel resentment, and you'll be like, oh, he's acting strange or even evil, done. So that was already planted. And I don't remember the movie at all, so when I rewatched it, and they just swapped the babies, I'm like, they full-on killed that other baby that was this actual family's child. And then later in the movie, when they go to the graveyard and they find the casket of their infant skeleton in there with a gaping hole in the skull, I'm like, this is 70s horror, man. Like, they didn't pull any punches at all. And it's not totally done in a distasteful way. It's just such a gut-wrenching scene for Gregory Peck to be like, okay, I'm sold. Let's kill this demon child and let's, save the world from this antichrist monstrosity. It's just, Jesus, this movie's hardcore.
Yeah. And the mother, or no, father, I guess, is a jackal. It's just a dog skeleton in the ground, and it's like,
so that's a little retcon too, which we'll get there. But yes, the jackal plays a weird role in this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, though, Blake. Because that's a committed lie. That is a lie that you are like committed to.
Yeah. Break her heart more is what you have to think about in the moment. Let her get through the devastation, or 10 years down the line, she's been raising this child, and then you find out it's not yours. And it's been doing weird shit. It's not even human.
That's the end. That's the end of a marriage, honestly.
The lies.
They didn't even get that far. Spoiler alert.
No, they really didn't. But
didn't even get that far.
That's so insane. Cam, thoughts?
Oh yeah. Okay, so there's the baboon scene. There's a scene where all the baboons, or the baboons as they call them, the baboons are attacking the car. So the way they did that was they tried putting food all around the car to have the baboons go crazy over that. But also the first thing they tried was to put a baby baboon in the back seat with the animal handler. And I read this on Wikipedia, so who knows if it's bullshit or not. But I'm just saying, like, even if it's bullshit, it's fun to think about. They put a baby baboon in the back of the car to get all the other baboons to attack the car. That didn't actually really work. So then they put the alpha baboon in the back of the car, and they all went fucking nuts on it. And before I even read that, I just noticed the scene as a particular standout in the movie because it was clearly an authentic stunt. And I really appreciated that because before computer effects in movies, they had to get creative, and they had to like kind of take more physical chances. And so it's clearly a bunch of real animals that they're having to deal with. And I just admire the hell out of that. I mean, not to mention chocolate lizards, aka Accidental Texan again, but like real animals on that set. There was a scene where we had to like they did a stampede with a bunch of bulls, and it's a cool authentic scene in the movie. Anyway, if you can find Accidental Texan, go watch it. I worked on that. It was fun.
Just don't go full Cannibal Holocaust, and it's fine.
Oh
Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
No. Horror fans just don't really.
If you've watched our show, you know how I feel about that fucking movie.
God, I was reminded earlier this week, and I'm like, man, I really, really hate that.
Yeah, I am gonna bring that movie up later though, but we'll get.
Okay, we'll get there. Any other thoughts on Omen 76?
I don't feel like we can, because who knows when we'll talk about this movie again. If we can get through without talking about the actual cursed set that this movie endured, I want to know what you guys think about it. If you know everything that happened,
Do you wanna give a rundown of it?
I can. It's also kind of like what Cam said. It's just like, I wasn't there. Who knows how much is actually true and how much is not, but The Omen is infamously one of the most cursed movie sets of all time. 3 different people part of this movie, when flying to location to film, their planes were struck by lightning, which planes are struck by lightning on occasion, but 3 different planes within the span of filming this movie is kind of crazy. And then the big one, which isn't undeniable, but there's a death that happened during filming, or not during filming, but of someone that worked on this movie. She was the effect designer, I believe. She was in a bad car accident and got decapitated. And there's a decapitation in this movie. And the part that I really want people to fact check, because it's just insane, is she was decapitated 66.6 kilometers away from the town of Omen, which is spelt differently. But it's just a weird coincidence of things that happened. And there were like 2 other things that happened during this movie, to the point where it's like, okay, something's going on with this movie. But it's a real thing about cursed movie sets when you deal with something satanic or just religious in general.
Yeah, I'm gonna need the receipts on that one.
Yeah,
That's
do a deep
ludicrous.
dive. It's insane, the stuff that happened for this movie, which
I've heard
certain details, who knows, but
I've heard that the planes being struck by lightning, but yikes.
yeah.
Yikes. I kind of feel like we could definitely do an episode where we talk about, in the future, no promises, guys, but eventually just talk about like cursed movie sets, Poltergeist and Omen and Twilight Zone.
I will say I've been to one personally, doing the Warner Brothers tour. They had the Conjuring set, which apparently a lot of things happened, and they showed us the building, but said no one's allowed in. They had a priest bless the place during filming, and things kept happening, and they just closed it off and rarely ever use it for stuff. So I was just like, that's weird to just be in the presence of something that may or may not be cursed or haunted in some capacity. So I think that'd be an interesting episode, because I know there's a lot of movies that are supposedly cursed, if you believe in stuff like that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. Look at us.
Look at us.
That'd be...
Who's cursed is Father Brennan, who's just like an unhinged lunatic. His death... Okay, so his death was one where I thought, that's ridiculous, or like they could have filmed that better. That's one of my slight gripes. He's like, the fucking spear or whatever is coming off the building, and he's like, no, and then like
loved it,
and then it impales the back of his shirt.
It was great.
That, and then the first time the mom like almost dies when she falls off the stair, like the railing.
It was the 70s.
It was the 70s.
It was the 70s. I will say, seeing the spear, the spear death, It made me think of Hot Fuzz. And I was like, that wasn't a coincidence, was it?
Maybe not. But it did give me sort of a frame of reference where I thought, okay, the kills in this are going to be super camp. But then they do the beheading scene, and it's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah!
It was like, oh, no, they did that really well, and I was surprised that a movie that felt like it was going for like sophisticated did that scene. I was like, no, okay, this is really trying to have an edge to it.
It really hits you. It really smacks you.
Yeah, the glass certainly had an edge to it. A very sharp
It was very sharp. Happy early birthday, Blake.
Well, thank you.
Indiana Old's heading out of the live chat. It was good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, President.
We'll see you soon.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Put some
Asterisk.
respect on his name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Old. President Old. Mr. Old.
President Old.
President Old. What else? Richard Donner actually wanted the ending, not the ending, but kind of the overall movie to be ambiguous whether or not Damien was the Antichrist, but interference, as always.
I've heard wild things about the third one.
I like the idea of that, of it's all the kills, all the deaths are sort of maybe just a coincidence. You have the idea that this kid could be the Antichrist, but they never really confirm it. I do think that would have been a cooler decision, but I try not to get too hung up on what a movie could have been, because there's always like, oh, this person was cast in the role, but then they weren't, and it was recast with this role. What would the movie have looked like if it was this role? And I'm like, it didn't happen. You know, we got the movie we got.
Me with Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. I can't let it go.
Oh,
I can't let it go.
That would have been a top 10.
I can't let it go. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Edgar Wright for Secret
You mean
Wars.
you wish you got Patrick Wilson as a young Hank Pym Ant-Man in flashback?
Oh,
Like what he planned?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm okay. I'm all right. It's fine. It's okay.
Maybe if James Wan does a Marvel.
Stop.
Could you imagine that? Wow.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
He could do Ghost Rider. I know. I was going to say something about what you just said how it was it was a mystery. It was up in the air.
Should have been.
It should have been up in the air. I'm just saying.
Could have been.
Could have been. If it was that way, it would have been a great condom PSA. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah,
even though they didn't really have the kid, but
Yeah.
That was a bad joke. Anyways, I'm going to move on.
Or just don't switch your baby out with some random ass baby that a church gave you.
I forgot it hinged on like it wasn't his kid, but it's.
Or don't do worse things, like we're about to learn about in the First Omen.
Yeah, perfect segue. The First Omen.
Moving on.
Oh boy. Oh man. Non-spoiler thoughts. I will say I do love the way this was filmed. I do think this is a really well filmed movie. There are definitely some shots that reminded me of 70s horror that I appreciated. That was really cool. I thought it was a nice looking movie. It was really nice looking. Outside of that, I feel like it has good scares in it, even though there's jump scares. It does have really good scares in it. I kind of bounce back and forth between making this a prequel and knowing where this is going to lead to, knowing where these characters are going to kind of sort of end up. Does that take away from the tension? Does it add to the tension? That's something I've been bouncing around on. But Cam, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I think it's definitely trying to take a similar tone as The Omen. It's a very slow burn, setting up the characters a lot. You know, we don't get a lot of 2-hour horror movies these days. I can't remember the last one that I've seen, but it's also taking itself pretty seriously. There's really no camp factor. not it's almost a humorless movie, which I know that I'm kind of the outlier as far as the core four of The Last Scare goes, but I love a humorless horror movie. Which, not maybe not humorless, but like I think I'm probably the biggest defender of just fucking bother me, just fucking like dig into me and make me feel bad.
I want that on a shirt. Just fucking bother me.
just fucking bother me. The Last Scare, just fucking bother
Fucking
me.
bother me.
Just like make me feel bad, And I think the movie made me feel pretty bad. It's from director Arkasha Stevenson. It also features a performance from the horror icon Ralph Ineson, known as the father from the Vivitch. He plays a much more, I would say, kind of grounded and sophisticated Father Brennan. I really think that Ralph Ineson was like too good in the role.
Dude!
Especially because I watched The First Omen first. And so I wasn't even sure if his character was going to be in The Omen. But then they name him as Father Brennan in The Omen. And so I'm like, okay, well, here's Ralph Ineson. And he's just a little more kind of a one note. He just seems like a maniac. And like you can't really believe anything he's saying in The Omen. But then in The First Omen,
his voice,
the gravity, the gravitas of this actor, who I also have to mention, Robert Eggers' third movie, The Northman, which is not really a horror movie, I think is Eggers' best movie. I just have to mention that because I've been thinking about it ever since I watched it. I watched it a few weeks ago for the first time, and like, oh my god, amazing movie. But Ralph Ineson also makes a brief appearance in that. Not a huge role. A lot of big names in that movie that aren't huge roles, but anyway, we can talk about this some other time. First Omen. Very scattered thoughts here. It was originally supposed to be dumped on Hulu. Disney was like, okay, here's a Hulu original movie, and one of the pluses of the strikes that happened last year is that it made Disney need more theatrical output, and so this one got elevated from Hulu dump to theatrical release, which financially it seems like it's kind of just barely breaking even right now. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing for them, but it's a good thing for us to get to see a big horror movie not just be dumped on Hulu, much like Alien Romulus later this year. Exciting.
I'm so excited about Alien. Oh man,
we'll
am I
have
excited.
that Alien. We'll have that Alien stream for sure.
Oh yeah. Maybe an Alien Bonanza. We just keep talking about episodes we might do sometime.
we can clearly tell we've missed this.
we've been away for a while.
We're workshopping too.
Hey, I love being productive. I agree, though. The performance in this from Ralph was just... I loved it. I really did. I loved his voice. Just kind of, I don't know, the way that he held himself as like this guy who knows what's at stake, but also knows how crazy the situation is and has to operate within that. I found that so fascinating. He never really pushed it. Whenever someone was uncomfortable or just wanted away, he never pushed it. I thought that was really intriguing. But Blake, what are your non-spoiler thoughts about The First Omen?
Non-spoiler thoughts. With a lot of horror movie prequels, there's so much at stake and there's already so much against it because of what a lot of horror prequels have had in the past. And just, this movie was always on my radar, and I'm like, why? Like, I had no faith in this movie whatsoever. No pun intended. But, yeah, I genuinely love this movie. I'll get into more specific reasons as to why I love the movie when we talk about spoilers, but I think it's just, even ignoring the horror aside, it's just a good movie. It has a really good script. It has a very obvious twist, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I ignore it because I think the story was very well told, We had an amazing main character that you really want to root for this entire time. And one jump scare, really, that comes to my mind, the only one that like really counts is like that was definitely a jump scare. Still one that you know is coming and is being built up to, and I thought was genuinely scary, which is why I still give it that credit. But um, overall, this was a deep, twisted horror movie that really lives up to what is an extremely classic horror movie, and I don't I don't think it disappointed. So many people are calling it better than the original, and it's getting great reviews. I didn't know the box office. I'm surprised it's barely breaking even, but I think it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to navigate my thoughts in this movie without spoiling too much because
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in going to movies blind can really benefit.
Mhm.
Outside of that, if you're interested in this movie, I did enjoy it. It has good scares in it, especially if you're a bit newer to horror, I'd say. There's some things that you might not be too used to this movie has to offer. However, I will let everyone know this movie was super close to getting an NC-17. So close. And there's a lot of pregnancy horror that's going on in this. Pregnancy body horror that's going on in this. If that's something that crosses a line for you, you might want to stay away from this one because it does get intense, especially later on in the movie. There's a scene that's involving birth that can be overwhelming for people that might be sensitive to that, and it's a very understanding thing to be sensitive to. I'm not judging anyone, just letting you know. I recommend it. Just keep that in mind. Do you have any wrap up thoughts? Everything I have to
Not
say is
really.
spoilers.
Yeah.
Go
I know, me
watch it.
too.
Go watch it. I enjoyed it. And I'm not someone who typically enjoys religious horror, but I do
Same.
like what this has to offer, personally. And it does stand out as something that's above what I typically expect going into a religious, or Catholic, I should say, Catholic horror movie.
Yeah, I will say that jump scare, that it had that the thing that I really don't like when they do in jump scares where it's a fake out. I did not like that. I wouldn't have had a problem with a bunch of jump scares in the movie. I think that one jump scare was really noticeable because there's not a lot of them. I think they maybe should have just done away with it because the original is so quiet and kind of thoughtful and is more dealing with the subject matter. Other than that one scare that I think was just sort of out of place, I think the movie was kind of faithful to the tone and the spirit of the original Omen, even if it did look and feel pretty different. I think it was sort of a worthy-ish prequel, but I'll save the rest of that for spoiler thoughts, which we will circle back to after our non-spoiler take on Immaculate.
Oh, Immaculate. Kim, you want to kick us off? Do you want to kick us off for Immaculate?
Sure. I'm gonna try not to gush too much, but like this is my favorite horror movie of the year so far. I
Ooh.
I I was very surprised. I I think I maybe underestimated Sydney Sweeney a bit. So this movie was something she auditioned for about 10 years ago, and it got into development hell. It wasn't getting made. Then later on, Sydney Sweeney bought the rights to the movie and hired the director Michael Mohan that she had worked with on prior projects such as The Voyeurs and Everything Sucks. And I think they worked on something else together. Anyway, they're frequent collaborators, someone she trusted to hire to direct the movie. There's also clearly a lot of Sam Levinson influence on the filmmaking, I think, especially with the cinematography. There's a lot of shots that are sort of like a slow dolly out just like sort of a very dynamic shot of the protagonist just like being a Madonna figure. It's sort of like this, a lot of the same shots that they do of Cassie in Euphoria. And I think that's because in a lot of ways this is Sydney Sweeney's movie. She didn't direct it, but she produced it, she made it happen, she's the lead performer, and it was clearly a very passionate, important project to her. And I just admire the hell out of how she used her clout, for lack of a better word, to make this movie happen.
Influence.
Influence, yeah, it's a much better word. Thank you. I think it's a really bold movie. I found myself actually kind of shocked by some of the places it went, and it kind of got under my skin, and while still being fun, not being like humorless and unfun, but it's still just like a brutal movie, and it's pretty heavy, and it's also kind of a fast burn. What do we call that? What's the opposite of a slow burn? A fast burn.
Just quick pacing, I guess.
Yeah, quick pace.
It's quick paced. It's a tight 90, and I don't know. I just thought it was really cool. That's where I'm at on it.
I just thought it was neat.
It was neato,
Yeah, neato. Blake, before I give my thoughts, what are your thoughts on spoiler-free thoughts on Immaculate?
Spoiler-free, of course. I agree with Cam. In going into the movie, just the story behind how she got the movie made is why I was rooting for this movie as much as I was, just because that's cool to not get cast in this movie years ago and the movie kind of gets shelved. Then she becomes a really big name and uses her influence to just re-employ these people and actually get this movie made that I'm sure they were just as passionate about making back in the day as they were now. So that alone was awesome, and the fact that it did do very well, and it was a good movie, was awesome. And yeah, it was very quick pacing. A lot of my thoughts are very spoilery related, but as far as religious horror goes and how the pacing can be, I think having a quicker pace really worked to this movie's benefit. I think it did get away with a lot that they showed, especially by the end. And at the same time, my only nitpick is I still feel like they played the movie a little safe, which I'll expand upon in a bit. And that might just be a personal thing for me and not a flaw to the movie. So I'm just going to call that a nitpick for now. But overall, it was a very good movie. And it will probably remain as one of my favorites of the year. So I liked it.
I can see why you have some of your points, Blake. I love this movie. I had a good time with it. I like the ambiguity it offered. That was really cool. This movie throws some wild stuff at you casually, and I thought that was cool. I thought it was really cool to kind of place this really just absolutely insane idea and concept in front of us and just like move on. Like, this is what's going on, this is part of the story, here you go. And they just like ran with it. So I thought that was cool. I respect that a lot. As the dust settles, I will say I do, at the end of the day, I do think I appreciate more, but I do think I favor Immaculate just a bit more. I feel like I have a lot of respect for Sydney Sweeney already, but especially towards the end of this movie, her performance really kind of blew me away. As the movie progressed, I was really impressed by her, and I do think she absolutely can be a scream queen, but just make sure, do you guys have any other thoughts? Anything else you want to throw in? Non-spoiler. It's a recommend for me. Go check it out.
It's a big recommend for me.
Oh, yeah.
Recommends all around across the board. So if you trust our thoughts, go see it.
See Immaculate.
Go see Immaculate.
Quick hello in the live chat to Nerdio Boy.
Hello.
Sup, gang? How's it going?
But while you're going to go check out Immaculate or First Omen, watch both of them. They're weirdly similar, which is why we're going to go ahead and talk about both spoilers.
Spoiler warning ahead for the First Omen and Immaculate, because now we are going to compare and contrast. And I feel like I think we all like both of them in different ways. I had initially anticipated this as more of a versus Immaculate versus the First Omen, because just based on our group text, it seemed like I was like, Immaculate's amazing, and Blake was like, First Omen is amazing. And I would say that my reaction to the First Omen was not very strong seeing it in the theater the other night. But I feel like just having this conversation this last hour has actually made me appreciate it a bit more. And also seeing the Omen. Like I said, I think I did it wrong watching the Omen afterward. If you haven't seen any of them, please watch the Omen first. I can't tell you about the sequels. I didn't watch those, but like in almost any circumstance, you should probably watch the original before the prequel if you've never seen any of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, honestly, I was a bit sleepy when we went to go see First Omen, but the more I've sat and kind of just like sat on it and really thought about it, there's different elements that popped out to me. They're like, that's really cool. And there's different times I've reflected back on what I was thinking during the movie. And so, like, for the filmmaking and cinematography, for example, that I remember popping out at me that I appreciate even more currently. I still like Immaculate a bit more, but I do really respect First Omen, especially being a prequel. I'm kind of over the abundance of prequels and sequels we're getting right now, but I do think First Omen really ran with it and made something special. But to make things a bit easier for you, Blake, you can pick. Do you want us to start with the First Omen spoilers, or do you want to start us with the Immaculate spoilers? What's on your mind?
Probably the First Omen. More things are on my mind for that one.
Hit us.
Okay.
With a car.
Geez. With a car, man.
Oh my god, that scene!
I have so many thoughts on both of them, spoiler-wise, so I'll still have a ton to say about Immaculate. But the cinematography of the First Omen is probably the thing I love the most about it. It's just so masterfully done. And I want to know if you guys thought the same thing I did when watching the First Omen. There's a shot, my favorite shot in the whole movie, and I want to rewatch it, but it is probably just one of my favorite shots in a movie because of how simple it is. And there is a metaphorical reason as to why it looked that way, and I thought of it. There's a shot during a very hard-to-watch scene towards the end of the second act of the movie, I'd say, of the what was the main character's name?
Margaret,
and the jackal, which the shot, spiders were a big motif throughout this whole movie, which I couldn't understand why. And then you get to the scene that the whole movie's really built around, and there's a shot of a spider on Margaret's stomach when what's happening happens. And the shot just lingered on that for a bit. And I was watching it, I'm just like, that's a cool shot, but also like, what if they're trying to be like, oh, it's the spider is just like this creepy hand over her womb since the spider's on her stomach. And sure enough, like 10 to 15 seconds later, when the jackal does get on top of her, it puts its clawed hand right on her stomach. And I'm like, that's 100% what these people were intending during that scene. And the fact that that entire scene is incredibly disturbing in context, and they still found a way, in my opinion, to execute it in a non-exploitive or disturbing way. Because as I referenced earlier, I've never seen a horror movie that deals with SA or anything of that nature in a enjoyable or tasteful way, to the point where like we like horror and we want to rewatch our favorite horror movies, and I've never felt the need to rewatch a horror movie that does something like that. And the fact that this movie built an entire narrative around that and found a way to execute it while holding that line and not crossing it I thought was pretty impressive, and to have a main character that has the resolution that they do in this story, I thought was very fitting, and that entire scene in general just stood out as to how it was executed when it was teased in the beginning and then build up the entire time, and just that shot. Did you think the same thing, or was I the crazy one just seeing the spider like that and forming that?
Oh, oh my gosh. I'll be honest. I did not think of that, but that's really smart. I will say I do agree with you on the way they handled the essay in this movie. As someone who is pretty much like, I'm not gonna watch I Spit on Your Grave, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the way they handled it in this movie wasn't exploitative, and I respect that a whole lot. They handled it tastefully. That was nice to see.
That's not nice.
No.
It's very nice to not see.
I don't know, guys, but I will say that I didn't pick up on the spider thing, but there are a lot of shots in this movie that are thematic that I do appreciate. For example, she's like praying and freaking out, and it pans out, and it's like she's in the mouth of a demon with the candles. That was really cool. Yeah, the poster.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Some shots, I think they're in a museum, and she's just chatting with someone. The way it was framed, I really liked. There's a lot of cool elements about this, but what do you think about what Blake presented?
Good points. Good points.
Also, your spoiler thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think the movie could have maybe not been an Omen movie. I think they probably needed to have it be part of this franchise to put butts in seats, but I think overall, they could have just kind of taken out the franchise element and let it be its own standalone thing. Because I feel like the way it ties in is ultimately a little forced. I think the ending setup, which is clearly like sequel bait of some sort, was kind of egregious. I will say the last 10 minutes or so with the jump forward in time with Margaret and her daughter, who I'm not sure if the daughter is an established character in the other sequels, but it kind of seems like maybe they're trying to go a new route with it. I thought they could have really done with that. I think maybe a lot of movies are getting way ahead of themselves, setting up sequels when you really don't know, because we haven't had an Omen movie since the 2006 remake, and so like they really were taking a chance on whether people were going to give a damn about the Omen returning for new movies, and I think the movie overall was too good to have that kind of really shoehorned setup at the end. And for the record, we're not doing the shoehorn competition. We're just like, we just keep like making the, like, it's not me versus Jayla again. It's just like the word.
You can tell because I wasn't angry about it.
The word always comes up.
Oh man, that ending, huh? Yeah. So,
Go on.
They spend a chunk of the ending describing the beginning of the Omen. Like, they just spell it out for us. And I was really annoyed. They're, all right, we're going to take this child. We're going to give it to this man with power. And this is what you're going to do. Their child's going to die. I'm like, okay, yeah, we know. And people who don't know probably looked into the Omen. They probably...
This guy.
They don't... It's not necessary. I liked seeing the conclusion with the girlies.
I'm like, what? He's the Antichrist? What?
Wow, you're gonna give him to a guy that's like a government worker? Whoa. But I just wish they cut that because it just felt really annoying. No, not annoying. But I was like, all right, okay, why? I liked the bit with the cabin and seeing where they ended up, but they just had to.
I didn't like that bit. I didn't care for that at all.
Well, up until they got the visit, it was fine.
I think they should have just ended the movie when it was over. Carlita, that's not her name.
They could have just. They
was
could
her
have just.
What was the girl's name? The 12-year-old girl.
Fiona?
No, the other one. I gotta say, the whole name situation was a little confusing. The girl that saves Margaret.
It was.
Was it Carlita?
Was it not?
Did I make that up?
No.
I think it was Carlita Sciano was her full name.
That was her name.
Okay.
They just created many Scianos.
I disagree. They should just kept it to seeing the three of them in a cabin. Okay, maybe the little visit can happen, but don't be like, they named your son. They gave it a name.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved the Marvel name drop.
I was,
They named your son Damien.
Oh my God, what's it gonna be?
I was like,
No.
you could have just been like, they adopted him out. They're coming for you. Anything but like Dalton.
Oh, what's it gonna be? Dalton.
We know. We know.
What if they did say it's Dalton and then suddenly they're like, it's a not Conjuring, Insidious.
Oh my gosh. It's actually an Insidious prequel. But no, I really pause. We need to talk about the scene. We gotta talk about the scene.
I love scene.
The scene. We heard whispers of a moment in this movie that will question if they could even do this before going to see it. And we're sitting there, we're watching the movie, and
we heard there was going to be one particularly shocking scene that was going to be the scene people were talking about.
It was really quick. As it was happening, I was deeply uncomfortable, and it messed with me. However, it was a fake out. That was a bit of a bummer. I mean, not for the woman, but it didn't really go anywhere. I said it didn't have a lasting impact on the story, and I guess I kind of expected it to. It's still bold move.
It also happened early on because
Yeah.
I was expecting, some horrible thing. And then it happens, it's like a claw kind of being, a demon claw sort of being birthed out almost.
We see it spread eagle.
Almost explicitly. They really, really cut away and kind of blur. And I kept thinking they're really showing, they're showing an up close birth, but they had to do 5 or 6 rounds of cuts for the fucking
It was
MPA.
5
Fuck
rounds.
the MPA.
You still see quite a bit, more than I expected.
But after it happened, I was like, okay, was that the scene? I thought it could be, but there was still a lot of movie left.
There were 3 scenes that could have been the scene.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of one of those moments where I remember how much horror we watch. And how we're always, no, let's watch the unrated cut. Let's see what they were really gonna do. After seeing half of Cronenberg's movies, it's whatever. After seeing Crash, I'm just yeah, all right, cool, claw coming out of a vagina. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was still deeply uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't kind of intensely shocking for me. I guess I'm a bit used to it. It wasn't I don't know how to explain it.
Desensitized.
I'm a bit desensitized to it. It was still extremely effective, but it wasn't mind blowing. Never seen this, uncharted territory for me. I guess is the way I want to put it. It still worked. It still messed up. It still bothered me, but it wasn't I've never seen a movie go this far. Blake, what do you think about this scene?
The fake out birth scene?
Yes.
See, I give it a pass for being a fake out. Just like with the jump scare, being a fake out is because this whole movie is really built around our Margaret's PTSD of just her entire life. She's been told something is wrong with her and to not believe the things that she sees, when it's really all about PTSD. She sees the nun jump scare, which she has no idea why she sees stuff like that, and she sees the birthing scene, uh, hallucination or whatever you want to call it, because that is a very haunting experience that she's either had at that point or something that's a premonition that she was literally bred to endure. So I think her entire life has been jump scare after jump scare. So when you get that throughout this movie and done in actually creative ways, I do give them a pass because I mean, her worst nightmare does come true at a certain point in this movie, and it just to go back and rewatch that movie, it would make those scenes hit even harder, knowing everything that haunts her, and she's just told over and over to ignore, is all just warnings in her life that end up coming true. It's just such an eerie movie. So I do like that scene.
Yeah, I guess I'd blame it mostly on the expectations other people set for us. Kind of like having an effect. But if I ever revisit it, I'm sure with a more clear mind, it would kind of be less bogged down from the standards that people that were talking to us about this movie set. But who knows? I don't know. I will say we're kind of getting into like where we can transition and start to actually compare the two movies, because throughout the First Omen, I was like, I just watched this movie, but a different flavor when it comes to Immaculate. And I kind of wanted to have a little jumping off point with the birthing scene. So, you know, we find out finally, which it wasn't a huge surprise at all whatsoever, that the First Omen is actually Margaret. Because, like, I pieced it together so quick. I was like, okay, I see where we're going. But the way they revealed it was really cool.
It was really pointed, I found, when she said, I am the First Omen. I was like, I know.
I thought it was cool, but at the same time, I did turn to my friend and I'm like, were we not supposed to know that?
Was this supposed to be a twist?
Like, I knew it was her, but fine.
What are we? Some kind of the First Omen?
Oh, get out. You can't call it the First Omen and have her as like the poster and not expect people to piece things together. Like, we're not going to impregnate a 12-year-old, guys. Come on. Silly. But we'll get there. This wasn't
this is an American horror movie. This isn't like this isn't a French horror movie.
No.
No, please.
No.
But let's
You know what the French word for no is? No.
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 Do you have anything else to add before I get into the birth scene?
Go on. We've been talking about the birth
Cool.
scene, but go off.
We haven't. No. When the First Omen, when Margaret, they get in the car crash.
You talking about that, like, when her water breaks and it's like
Yeah.
the gushing?
Yeah, the gushing. So it is. I haven't seen Possession yet, but it is a tribute to Possession.
Yeah.
I have understood that bit. It makes me really want to watch Possession.
Well, damn, me too.
It makes me really want to watch Possession. Oh my gosh. It's been on my list for a while. I know it's like one of those like crazy movies that people talk about. However, that was so uncomfortable for me. Because, you know, they get in the car crash trying to do a back alley abortion just to catch everyone up. After I found out that Margaret is the First Omen and she's kind of pregnant with the Antichrist, which sucks for her. They get in a car crash and she like steps out. She's the only one that's conscious, and like you see her belly grow, and then just her water breaks and she's just screaming, which is kind of similar to a scene in Immaculate. But what are your two thoughts on this moment, this pivotal moment that's just like accelerated birth, super uncomfy for her. Who wants to go first? Anyone? Don't.
I
Take it
don't.
away, Cam.
I don't
Oh, you
have.
don't have
I don't
it.
have thoughts on that
All
specific
right,
thing.
Blake.
I have other thoughts.
I do have thoughts on the other car wreck, but we'll get there.
But we'll get there. Yeah, the specific scene in the First Omen is very uncomfortable to watch, to say the least. And I heard that it's a reference to a scene in Possession. I watched the scene without context. It didn't really help me, so I do want to watch that movie. But I, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what was happening in that scene until you physically start to see the change that's becoming of her, and just that's your transition into the final act. It's like that specific moment to me is just that evil has won in that particular moment. It's all of her fears being manifested in one moment. And I maybe I'm making this movie a lot deeper than it actually is, because even when watching it, not even coming out of the movie and thinking about it after, during the movie, I'm overanalyzing every scene that's given to me, and that one in particular, because it's so uncomfortable and hard to watch, my mind just has to go to other places to just rationalize why the filmmakers are putting me through that. But in terms of just um, what did you say, Cam? What did I want on a shirt? Just
Oh, just
bothering me.
fucking bother me.
That scene fucking bothered me. So that's my thought about that scene.
Bothered is accurate. I was very bothered with the last final act of this movie. From the birth going into where this where she's given a forced C-section, and she's just like, there was no score, and it's just panning around the room, and she just keeps saying, I'm in pain, please help me, I'm in pain. Right before a forced C-section where we see all of it, like him just digging into her guts. That was worse than like the whole like claw coming out of a vagina thing, because it was just
More
held
real.
on it.
Yeah.
They just held on it, and that's one of this movie's strengths, that there's a couple of scares, there's a couple moments where they just let you sit with it. Kind of bouncing back a little bit, there's a moment earlier, like towards the end of the second act, where Margaret is found out that she knows, and they throw her into the bad room, and she's like sobbing, and she looks up, and we just get a really long take of a nun that killed herself earlier, sorry, and burned alive. Just kind of like getting up and just like slowly walking towards her. She's all like burned and like dead and messed up, and it just held you there. It held the tension there, and it let you sit with it. And I love scares like that, and I feel like this is what this movie is the best at. You know, it has its good where its strengths lie, I should say. But yeah, whenever the birth starts and leading on into the C-section, that was intense overall. I think that was really well done, and this is kind of where I can start bouncing to Immaculate, because Immaculate has a similar scene done very differently. However, my jaw was on the floor. So for Immaculate, kind of pivoting a little bit towards the end, so we find out they have the nail that was used to crucify Jesus Christ. They've been using this to impregnate women against their will, nuns. But
as someone who was formerly religious, I was still like, ooh, that makes me kind of uncomfortable. I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
I feel kind of naughty watching this. That feels a little bit gross.
Dude, this movie overall, I will say Immaculate overall made me feel more gross than First Omen overall. It opened up with one of my biggest fears of all time, which is nun. She's trying to escape. She almost gets out, but the other nuns, they like grab her leg and break it and then bury her alive.
The scene where she wakes up in the coffin at the beginning of the movie I thought was masterfully done, because it doesn't show you her being buried. It's not like it's just it's from her perspective. She just wakes up, and then you really, really feel the helplessness and the hopelessness of it, and it's like a mean motherfucking movie.
Her crying just set the tone, and like the
really
Omen,
strong opening.
Yeah, the first Omen also had a strong opening, but I feel like for me, and this could be personal because I have a very real fear of being buried alive. So,
why is that a real fear?
Dude, it's terrifying. What do you mean?
I mean,
why?
what's the reality? What's the scenario where that's going to happen to you?
I don't know, but I'm scared of it. We don't have a great count of like missing people that were actually just buried alive because they were buried alive. We don't know about it. Yeah.
Damn, she got you there.
Oh yeah, showed me.
Listen, it's awful because it's going to take you forever to actually be able to just die, and you're just stuck there. No,
Let me
no,
ask
thank
you this, Jayla. Have you seen Buried with Ryan Reynolds?
I can't do it. I can't do it.
That movie will fuck you up.
I can't do it. I know all about it, but I literally cannot sit myself down and watch that movie because I was feeling myself like starting to breathe faster during the opening of Immaculate, and I liked the opening of First Omen. It was great. First Omen, he's talking to a priest, and they go outside, and like he gets like his like brain gets a nice little slice taken out of it because of falling glass.
It's a little cut, a few inches off.
Yeah, just a little back lobotomy, just a little chunk taken out. And I do appreciate there wasn't like a stinger. There wasn't like loud violins playing when he turned around and it revealed his head. They just let it happen. Just wanted to compare the two openings. I don't know. I lost myself on this tangent. Overall, Immaculate made me feel more dirty. Immaculate kind of made me feel more gross. Towards the end, it's just a long take of Sydney Sweeney just screaming. It's visceral, and she's giving birth. And, of course, she kind of sort of kills the baby, who didn't seem like the baby was all right either. And I felt like that
was not a human baby.
It was clearly, it was another failed experiment. And that's something that's one of the many things that both movies did. They both have just the worst nuns you've ever seen. Just truly bad, very bad nuns. Forcefully impregnating these women to bring about some sort of important figure, one being a new Messiah, one being the Antichrist, but both being for the sake of the church or for the sake of the world. Both of them being like the Catholics. They're both being Catholics. One wants to bring about the Antichrist to scare people into going back to church.
The hippies did too much.
And then the other ones want to bring about the Messiah. Both of them maybe kind of think that they're doing it for good, but it just shows just like the fucking cruelty of these churches. You know, in Immaculate, you have a woman who is speaking out against the church, and they cut her tongue out.
That was rough to watch both times.
Which is something that has obviously happened in real life. You hear about historically people's tongues being cut off, and then I was thinking of the Avoxes from the Hunger Games, and then we actually see it happen in this scene. It's like, this shit is mean. Like that scene that got under my skin. The cutting off the tongue, like even though it's brief and it's kind of distant, it's
you
like
still see the dribble.
Holy shit! It's like ouchie.
I will say overall, I just felt just disgusting after watching Immaculate, but in a good way. Just seeing I feel like Immaculate highlighted the corruption a bit more than the First Omen. However, I do find it interesting that First Omen was like, we'll just create the Antichrist because more people need to come to church. That was an interesting take.
Immaculate was more pointed with it. It's definitely a theme running through both movies.
Immaculate was more grimy about it. But Blake, we threw a lot at you just now. What's your take on?
I'm making so many mental notes.
I know, we threw a lot at you. Give us your take on that, and also, if you can fit it in, give us your take on the car crash scene in First Omen with her her one night stand, because that's something I didn't get to. So go on, tell us.
Okay, let me bunch it all up and bring it together here. There was a lot to unpack with the crash in the First Omen, which I'll touch on before I start comparing Immaculate and First Omen. But with the car crash, the editing in First Omen really confused me, and I'll be honest, which is why I really want to rewatch it. But she had a one night stand with this gentleman at a club, and then it cuts very abruptly to the very next morning. She wakes up and her friend is just like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, I took you home with me. You were all over that guy. Things happened, but you're good." And she's never told what she did or what happened with that guy that night. And when she comes across him again, she gets that flashback of him like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know," and points to his forehead, which of course he immediately gets hit by a car. And when she tries to rescue him, he gets ripped in half, which I thought was insane. That movie just showed what it did. But anyway, of course, it's revealed that he was referencing that she was drugged and he was there when she was taken by the nuns and the jackal did what it did to her. And of course, it was referencing the 666 on her scalp. So there was a lot to unpack with that car crash. And I did like that scene. I thought it was a cool way to tie it all in together, and it was a graphic kill. The First Omen didn't pull any punches when it came to the violence shown. And again, I don't think it was over the top, and I'm also extremely desensitized, as I found out, and I came to terms with that with Immaculate. The birthing scene for Immaculate, Sydney Sweeney acted her ass off in that screaming one take, which was very well done. And of course, it was inhuman. I know Sydney Sweeney said she kind of wants that ending to be a little ambiguous. I honestly think it's only ambiguous if you want to make it ambiguous and you really want to pick it apart because you're looking for other stuff than to just take it at face value, hear the weird breathing of that infant, and knowing she doesn't hesitate in the slightest. She gets a giant rock and smashes it. And when it ended right after that, I was just like, was that the crazy thing that people were hyping up? I'm really desensitized because that didn't really bother me at all. I thought that was a great ending. Like, the fact that it didn't really blow me away doesn't detract from this movie at all. I watch a lot of horror movies, and I thought that was the best way this movie could have ended. And again, I don't think it pushed things too far at all. I think it was really in line with what this movie was trying to tell, and the way both these movies executed what they were trying to tell with these narratives were very similar but very different. With Immaculate, the reason I give the First Omen an edge, and again, this isn't really a negative against Immaculate, it's just my personal taste, but Immaculate got a little silly, in my opinion, just with the nail that they used for Jesus and using that DNA to bring about a Messiah. I don't know. By the time we got to the third act and she was like strapped in the chair and they were wheeling her through their evil little lab, showing her their evil plans, it got a little supervillainy to me. So the fear I had of this church was more out the window than it had been for me for everything leading up to it in that movie. I was more so just enjoying it, as opposed to enjoying it while scared and timid of what these people were capable of. Just more knowing more about them, I was like, okay, I'm kind of out of it, and I'm just enjoying the movie. Whereas the First Omen, it was just plain evil. They were trying to create a certain type of evil to enlist a certain amount of power to control society and get them back into the church. I thought that was a little more, for lack of a better term, real, because it really had me sitting there like with Father Brennan. The whole point of this movie was, how do you prevent something that sounds so absurd? Like if someone came up to you on the street that said, "Help me, this church is trying to bring about the Antichrist to control the world," you're going to need a lot more than that. And you really get the stakes involved because it's like, who's going to help? No one believes that that's actually happening. So that's why the First Omen resonated with me a little bit more, and the fact that both of these movies have strong female characters that at the end of the day are trying to get away from these occults, if you will, and escape the miracles of the pregnancy that's being forcibly instilled upon them, and then trying to kill it or get back at it by the end. It's interesting that these just came out so close together, and the best thing to come out of that circumstance is that they're both really good movies, and that I don't find myself having to choose between them. I have a preference with the First Omen, but at the end of the day, I recommend both, and I really enjoyed both.
Yeah, I think circling back to what you were saying with how people reacted to the ending of Immaculate being so shocking, I think they're not getting that was not really a baby.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Wait,
are
breathed.
Yeah, I think some people watching the movie don't know that if a baby isn't crying when it's born, there is something wrong. And like it's like gurgling and wheezing and stuff. And we've already seen before, and this is something they did in the First Omen too, that they've experimented. They have tried to get this baby made, and they've just got like jars of horrible abominations of like
Deformities,
deformed
and
fetuses, and you can actually see it. It's very out of focus in the final, which is like a 5-minute oneer, by the way. The final shot of Immaculate, she gives birth, she rips off the umbilical cord with her teeth, smashes it. That whole thing is one shot, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. But in that shot, you do see the horrible deformity on the ground, just very out of focus. And it's like a weird oval blob. It's like Eraserhead baby status. Like
Eraserhead baby?
it's like more of
I haven't seen Eraserhead yet. Oh.
It's okay, you see it and like if you just think a little bit about the way the other ones looked, and like the way that Sydney Sweeney's character isn't particularly special in comparison to all the other girls, like other than her changing the status quo at the end. I mean, as far as the horrible nuns are concerned. What? Oh shoot, did we lose us?
No, we're still
swap.
there. Okay. Whoa. It's heavily implied that it didn't work again.
Yeah. It clearly didn't. It was clearly another horrible deformity.
That's funny. I said that I didn't want to like really pick it apart. I agree with you, but I saw it slightly different. That based on her face of how she looked at it, I like to think, and maybe this is my headcanon, I don't know if this is what they wanted, but I like to think that they finally succeeded. That was this monstrosity Messiah thing that they were trying to create, and just the way she looked at it made me more so get that she was just like, you're this abomination that they were trying to summon, and by her taking it out was more so her like, there's no one left to stop me and to see your work follow through. Congratulations, you did it, and I'm finishing it right here, as opposed to it just being another like, all that for nothing. You put this poor woman through hell just for it to be another failure. I think it's more of a fuck you to them. If they succeeded after death and there's no one left to stop her from just killing it. I've been running with that the entire time.
I believe that both movies have strong themes of autonomy, and, what these women go through. For me, my first read, and for now, I do want to watch it at least one more time. My first read is that it was another failure, because I feel like that Immaculate has stronger scientific vibes to it, for lack of a better term, currently. And it feels a bit more like these people who are super desperate, grasping at straws, trying so hard to make this thing happen. The only thing that kind of puts a hinge in that is the whole, like, they're monitoring the pregnancy the whole time. Regardless, I love the final scene so much. And I do think the end of the movie is a massive FU to all of them from Sydney Sweeney. And I feel like that she did great at that. I feel like her moment to kind of like fight back and, you know, make it and survive and not be tethered to them in any manner was really well done.
I do agree that her smashing the baby was a fuck you to the evil nuns, but I didn't see it as them trying to bring forth a horrible abomination. I see it as sort of like the opposite intent as the First Omen. In the First Omen, they're trying to bring the Antichrist, something evil. In Immaculate, what they're trying to bring about is the second Messiah, which I don't think is supposed to be horrifying to look at. I think it's basically just supposed to be like Jesus again. And I do think that the fetus or whatever is just another failed attempt. But like you said, smashing it is a fuck you to them because
The breathing made me feel like it was just like something that shouldn't be in the world.
Yeah.
No,
Not necessarily.
It wasn't a mercy killing. It wasn't just a mercy killing.
Yeah.
It was like there was kind of it, but that was not the point. So I'll give you that.
I feel like maybe it could have been like an abomination in the sense that it should not be something that's forced. That trying to force this thing to happen created something that should never exist in the first place.
Exactly, because it's these churches abusing their power. It's not really. Wow, kind of running out of steam here.
You're good.
It's not about that. It's about these churches controlling the women, and that's the horror of it. It's about them abusing their power.
Yeah.
I could explain that better.
No. That's a perfect way to explain it because that's what it is. Yeah. They're both young women that are really excited, I guess, for lack of a better term, to enter this lifestyle, and they take that excitement or how they're a bit naive or whatever you want to call it. And they use that against them. Yeah, it's about the way that the churches can use prophecies to manipulate the people, much like Dune 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Absolutely.
Lot of that in 2024.
Yeah, 100%. But like I said, I appreciate both movies for attacking very similar ideas and stories, but in such different ways. Mm-hmm. I like how Immaculate felt, even with the nail. I know, I might be crazy. It felt a bit more grounded. And you have First Omen that kind of really leans into the paranormal ideas of it. So you have a little something for everyone. You have something that can fit whatever everyone's looking for, and it's a good double feature. Invite your friends over, bake some pizzas. I don't know. Watch both and tell us what you think. Fun for the whole family. Fun for the whole family, maybe. Blake, do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, just that, God, we're lucky enough to have both of those movies be as good as they are.
That's true. Another smashing success.
Yes. And I hope Sydney Sweeney stays in the horror business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Truly a horror icon after that one, I think.
Make a movie with Samara Weaving.
A very strong motion picture.
Yes.
Thanks to Nerd Yo Boy and to President Indiana Old for being in the live chat tonight with us. Thanks for dropping a like on the video and subscribing and ringing the bell so you don't miss our live shows. That notification can let you know so you don't miss it because it could happen at any time. We are at Last Scare on Twitter, and our individual handles are in our bio. We're also at Last Scare on TikTok, which we are very intermittently present and active. So, much like, what's her name? Much like maybe Margaret and
Margaret.
Margaret's daughter.
I'll be right back.